Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fresh Off the Set. My name is David Osmond. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm thrilled to introduce you to someone that maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but he's a buddy that I've known for quite a few years and a fascinating gentleman. He's an American television personality. He's a producer. He's a public speaker, best-selling author, and also private investigator. That's kind of a cool twist of things. I want to dive into what that side of your life is and how that became a huge TV show. Troy Dunn is in the studio, the podcast studio today, and he's got stories for days. I don't even know where I'd begin to start opening that shell, but your early life started in Kansas. You moved to Florida, spent a lot of time there, and ultimately came here to Utah, doing a lot of different things. Troy, welcome to Fresh Off the Set. It's nice to have you in studio.
Brother, you are so generous when you introduce people. First of all, I'm happy to see you wearing glasses.
I know. I have arrived.
Keep them on. Turn and look at the camera. Let them see you.
Hey, no shame.
I just like as I'm aging, because I hate them, but I like to see people starting to pop them on.
It happened, man. It's like it's just one of those necessary things. I understand. It's a badge of honor for sure. So
I hope
I'm in the club.
Gets one shot in their life to have you introduce them to walk into a room. Because I mean, if you took the food delivery guy, the Uber Eats guy, into a living room to drop off food, you would take the whole group and go, "Hey, everybody, listen!" Like, you're so generous.
Well, it was easy because I read it the exact way you wrote it.
Oh yeah,
so,
perfect. My mom wrote it.
My
mom wrote it.
No, but hey, if it takes one to know one, you're the ultimate nice guy producer. And I wouldn't say party planner, but you know what I mean. You know how to put together the right people and then tee them up for success and make everybody feel like the star of the room. And you do that naturally as well. I've seen it firsthand. You've done it for me as we've even done a lot of shows together, performances, and you've been promoting. And so we'll start from kind of the beginnings of your career, who you are, where you got started, what did you want to become as a kid, and how did you end up in the Fresh Off the Set studio talking about your career today? Where did you begin? The beginnings of Troy Dunn, out of Kansas.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
this is like a Barbara Walters
interview. We're going to pack it all in. Yeah, get your Kleenex.
I don't know if I can go back that far and have a good story to tell you. I mean, I grew up in a family that my dad was a struggling entrepreneur. I tell people he was a rainbow chaser because he had great ideas but no follow through and execution, and which is one of those things that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. And so we moved a lot. I went to a different school every year of my life, from kindergarten to high school.
I understand that. Every semester was a new school.
Every semester.
It was bad.
Yeah, I didn't do that much. But yeah, I literally have 12 schools, 12 years of school, 12 houses, 12 bedrooms, 12 neighborhoods, 12, I always tell people I made a career out of being the new kid at school. And if you're that guy, if you're the new kid, every single year, life at the lunch table, life on the bus, it's hard. So you've developed certain survival skills,
thick skin,
to build relationships quick, and I label people best friend really fast because you don't know, come August who the next one is. But that was kind of the base I grew from. I grew from a family that's 3 generations of adoption. My little brother is adopted, Native American, Travis, and my mom's adopted, and my grandmother's adopted.
Wow!
And so a lot of adoption. I'm not, but a lot of adoption. And I've always listened to my mom talk about wanting to find her biological family, and she never did. And it was a kind of a trauma thing to watch her throughout my childhood, search, go to genealogy centers and go look at old phone books and old new, always searching. And then I met a guy one day when I was 22 who had done his own adoption search, found his own birth family. And I said, "Oh my gosh, I didn't think it was doable. Would you help me help my mom find her family?"
Did she always want to be reconnected? I mean, each circumstance is different, right?
Yeah, but I think it's not as different as people think. Now, all these years later, having done this a lot, there are people who will say, "Oh, I don't want to know who my family is," but that's not always true. It's just what people say to not offend the feelings of the people around them, who adopted him and raised him. But you have to remember, if you're adopted, then your life story begins on chapter 2, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't know chapter 1.
Yeah.
You don't know. Nobody tells you on your birthday that, remember when you were born and there was that, and that was Dad raced through the traffic, and you have a chapter 2. That's where your life starts. So
A lot of left ends and unknowns.
Well, just questions.
Yeah.
It's just everybody wants to know their life story. Not to mention the less emotional part, which is just the medical thing. There's 6,000 illnesses that are hereditary. 50% of them skip a generation, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. So it's kind of Russian roulette to go through life adopted and not have your biological medical history. So for a lot of reasons, my mom always searched. And then I met this guy. He had done it. I begged him to help me help my mom. He said, well, I'm not a professional, but why don't you tell me what she knows? And I snuck over to her house. She had a shoebox under her bed that's been there for 20 years that she would put scraps of paper in as she searched, and brought that to his house, dumped it out, spread it across the table. And 5.5 hours later, he slid a yellow sticky right across the table to me, and it had a phone number on it.
What?
He said, that is your mom's phone number. And I was like dumbfounded, and I was trembling. I'm a 22-year-old, college football player. I don't think of myself as a tender, emotional guy, but it was startling.
This is your grandma.
Yeah, it'd be my biological grandmother.
And
so
did you know anything else besides the phone number? A name? Anything to go on?
He showed me how he connected all the dots and how it was her. And it was really amazing. It's not like they're not that easy to do most of the time, but this one, I don't know, destiny.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, you need to call your mom. I'm like, oh, yeah, of course. So I call my mom. I said, Mom, are you sitting down? And she said, oh, Lord, what's wrong, Troy?
Yeah.
I said, no, Mom, listen, nothing's wrong. I'm holding a piece of paper with your mother's phone number on it. And she was really quiet, and then just began to sob, in a way that I've never heard my mom cry. That's from her gut, from her core.
Wow.
And it was a long, quiet moment of listening to her cry, and then she settled down and gave the number, and that was the beginning for us. That was the beginning of. I hung up the phone from that experience, and I said to the kid that helped me, I mean, my mom can't be the only one. There must be other families out there. We should build like a business or something that helps people find missing family members. And we did. We set it up in the back bedroom of his house, and we didn't know how to market or sell or do anything. We were just two kids in our 20s.
Yeah.
Went to an adoption convention, and a lady walked up, and she said, and you won't recognize this name because you're too young. I'm lying about your age.
Thank you. These glasses are fake, by the way. This is just for
you did it to make me feel better. And she said, hi, I'm a producer for a brand new TV talk show called The Montel Williams Show. Would you guys come on the show and reunite a family? And we initially said no. I said, it feels a little exploitive to do something like that. And she said, no, think of all the families that have no idea that there's ways to get help. And I'm like, okay, that's a good point. So we went on Montel in New York City, did a family reunion, mother-daughter. It was amazing. The next day, our answering service took 12,000 messages in 24 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
12,000.
That's insane.
At this point, our answering service hadn't taken more than like 7 calls a week, and most of those were my mom saying, what would you boys like to have for lunch? And then she'd make us lunch and bring it over to the house. 12,000 messages, and at $1.50 a message, right? So $20,000 phone bill for one day. So we were instantly broke, but we instantly figured out this is how we're going to grow our business, is we'll tell great stories about beautiful families, and that will help us get the word out. And next thing you know, we're on daytime talk shows, every show on TV.
Wow.
Hundreds of times a year. And it got really big. We had 1,800 employees working in all 50 states and 32 countries. And we reunited over 40,000 families.
Wow.
And
is that like some kind of a record? I mean, or are there
I don't
are there
know
a lot of people doing this like what you're doing? Because you told me earlier today, you went, half the world is looking for the other half of the world. Like, is it that big of a challenge? People are just disassociated?
I think that
disconnected.
I think that people separate for different reasons. Certainly in the 40,000 cases that we saw, they're not all adoption. I mean, there's people who are looking because they were separated in a bitter divorce. Mom took one kid, dad took the other, and the kids grew up separate, and now they're trying to find each other. Or lost loved ones, people who met back in the day and never made the relationship work, and now they're 2 divorces later going, wow, I should have married the one I loved first. And A lot of military guys. We get a lot of military reunions, people who are, I haven't seen him since he pulled me out of the foxhole and saved my life, and I was flown home, and they want to see that. A lot of dying wishes. When we get to the end of our life, especially if you know it, right? The doctor tells you, short term, people start to think about people, and we get those a lot. I don't have much time to live, and I want to see this person one more time.
When you're in the trenches with someone having the most emotional experience of their lives, like you experienced it first with your mom, when you're, as an empath, I would imagine you feel that energy. What does it do to you as the person that helped connect that? Is it overwhelming? Do you kind of have to step out of it and just realize what your role is, or does it affect your emotions when you're watching this? Because 40,000 cases is a lot.
Yeah, I don't know if I would even describe myself as an empath, but I might have evolved into one only because of this journey that I've been on. I wouldn't have said years ago that I was. If you watch our television show, because eventually this turned into a TV show.
The Locator.
Yeah. We got a phone call from Ancestry.com one day, and they said, love what you're doing. You search for the living, we search for the dead. You should be part of our organization. I said, it's our baby. We created this. And they're like, I know, but we could help more people than you do because we're bigger and we have scale and we have resources. And the founder of Ancestry.com, Paul Allen, flew Jennifer and I out to Utah. That's when we visited Utah, and said, we want to acquire your business, and we want you to come and be our media spokesperson. And so we sold the company to Ancestry, and then I spent 3 years as their TV spokesperson and doing that stuff. But
it was that acquisition that brought you to Utah with Paul.
No, I worked hard to not live in Utah, which is I really did, and I'm just confessing, to be honest. I think we're converts to the LDS Church. We converted when I was very young. And we've only ever lived outside of Utah. And I'd only met a handful of Utah people in my life that had visited wherever we lived in Florida or Oklahoma, Kansas. And I always thought, they don't know what real life is like. I don't want to raise my kids in this little. They live in the sweetest little pretend cities, and I just thought I don't want to do that.
That's funny.
And now, but I've lived here 9 years. And I regret everything I ever thought, and I wasted a lot of time not being here. Sincerely, we're Utah fanatics now. But at the time, I actually told Ancestry, part of my deal, my contract, was I would sell them the business if I didn't have to relocate. And they're like, yeah, but you're this TV spokesperson. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's mostly New York and LA, and I'll come into the office. They said, you'll commute from Florida. I said, yeah. And for 3 years, I commuted from Florida to fulfill my contract. And then I had a 7-year-old daughter who got diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of cashed out of Ancestry and went full-time to be her roommate at the Ronald McDonald House in New York City, where we were trying to get her healed. And so that was kind of where that chapter turned. And then got her stabilized, and TV called. And that was the most bizarre, never planned for it, wasn't part of life plan, to be offered.
Happened fast.
It was ridiculous. It was this. There's another show you won't remember because you're too young.
You're very kind. And for the record, Montel's a good buddy of mine, and Paul Allen is too, so I'm older than.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, dirt.
All right. Well, anyway, there was a TV show called The Sally Jesse Raphael Show back in the day, and she wore red glasses, and the mother of all.
She could stir up some controversy, and
I made dozens and dozens of appearances on her show. And one of the producers, not even a producer, she was an associate producer who started as an intern, who would bring Diet Cokes to the green room. She called me one day, years later, after I'd done the whole Ancestry chapter, and she said, "Troy, it's Holly." And I said, "Holly? From Sally?" And she goes, "Yeah." I said, "Oh my gosh, I haven't heard from you in forever. What's going on?" She said, "Crazy story. I'll tell you later. But anyway, I'm the president of Sony Television."
From Diet Cokes to the.
They're not kidding when they tell you be nice to people on the way up.
You meet them on the way down. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was really amazing. And she said that. She said, "You were always so kind to me, and I've always loved your love of family and the way you do your thing. We'd love to build a TV show around that. I think the world needs something more family friendly." And that was it. They went and created the Locator, sold it to WeTV, became the highest rated show in the history of the network, and that just spun into another show at TNT, and then another show called Last Hope that we did on Up TV. And anyway, so all that took place. But circling back to your question, I was crying all the time.
Yeah.
I was crying all the time. To be honest with you, I cry still today because we have the nonprofit we can talk about later. But I hear voicemails and I get emotional because people aren't calling. It isn't like they're calling to place an order for a pizza, They're calling and saying, I can't wake up and move another day until I know where my mom is, or I've got a brother that was ripped from me, or I was a terrible person when I was younger and I want some redemption, and there's some people I need to apologize to, and I've sobered up and I've gotten clean and I want to reach these people and I can't find them. And I mean, they're always something really urgent. And so the stress is always pretty high.
Yeah.
But if you ever do get really desperate for something to binge and you watch the old Locator episodes, you'll see too much crying from the Troyster. I get emotional a lot, and they edit a lot out because the executive producer is like, Troy, people are going to think that you are sniffing onions before every interview so we're going to cut some of them. I'm like, oh, that's good. But I do feel like I had the greatest job in the world on the Locator, Yeah. I mean, I feel like maybe the second. I think Santa Claus has the greatest job in the world. But for sure, having a front row seat to something so personal and so tender in people's lives, is gratifying.
And seeing and being a part of firsthand all these incredible reunions and stories that are emotional, they're life-changing. You've had a chance to now take that and to go to audiences as a keynote speaker. You've written several books. Are all your books, are they having to do with this topic, or do you ever go into other paths or other career
No, I think my
ventures?
Most of my books are more business focused just because, you can't do good things if you don't build a good platform to do good things on. And so we had to get really good at the business side of things. Yeah. Right? It's kind of great doctors. There's some great doctors in the world, but they end up bankrupt because they know all about medicine and nothing about running their offices. And unfortunately, the world loses a good doctor that way. So my business are more, things that come out of my personal life. We have 8 children. They're all adults but one now. We made them all start small businesses when they were 5 years old.
Good for you.
So I wrote a book called Young Bucks, How to Raise a Future Millionaire. And that was a bestseller off of just appearances on CNBC. It was crazy. So no, I don't really have, unlike you, everybody knows you and knows exactly who you are and what you represent, which is a beautiful family and incredibly gifted and talented performer. I don't know what I am. I just, I'm 58.
You're trying to locate your own.
I don't think I'm trying to locate anything.
Who am I?
I'm not even, I'm just happy being me at whatever chapter I'm in, I mean, I didn't think I'd end up with a company that charters cruise ships, but.
This is a fascinating twist of events. I mean, now that you have the Charter King is what it's known by. That's the website.
The Charter King, Charter King.
But you're able to, I think maybe people and you see dynamics and family relationships, how you find them. I think you also have this gift of being able to network and say, you have these gifts and this person has these gifts. You guys need to know each other. So maybe there's a part of you that just says, we need to put you all together in a fun environment where you can engage and connect. So you've chartered these huge vessels, these ships that can house over 3,000 to 4,000 people.
Well, what really drove it was we started a nonprofit for the Locator, because even though we no longer had a business that went and found people, all of my TV shows are still circling the earth, and they're on 24 hours a day somewhere, and there's lots of it happening. We're in 46 countries our show is running. I speak so many languages, you have no idea. My German me, whoever does that voice, I mean, it is the manliest version of me I've ever heard. If I could be Schwarzenegger, that's the German Locator. He's amazing, whoever does that voice.
Does your wife, Jennifer, she'd say, hey, could you just learn German, speak German for me tonight?
No, because what happened, my kids will tell me, Dad, you sound like Schwarzenegger. I'm like, yeah, I wish it was me.
Yeah.
But then my wife reminds me that the French version of me in the Locator is about as effeminate as it can be.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Dad's got a lot of personality. Different. But when we started the nonprofit, we knew we had to figure out how to fund it. And so that's when I was like, okay, I got to come up with some work that can create funding for the Locator Foundation, because I don't know any wealthy families who are like, oh, we'll just write you a check and we'll take care of every reunion for the rest of your life. That's always everybody's fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So instead, I have to grind and find money to help these families with these reunions. So that's where the charter business started.
I see. Got it.
When COVID started in 2020, I made my I didn't know it at the moment, but I made my last appearance on Dr. Phil, who's a longtime friend. Has had me on the show many, 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 many times. And then they went dark, right? COVID hit, they went dark. Phil texted me and he said, hey, we're going dark indefinitely, and I may or may not use this as an opportunity to also
make an exit.
Yeah, which he ultimately ended up doing. Now he's down in Texas and does kind of a web thing. Anyway, and so it was during COVID when cruising shut down that I was like, oh, the cruise industry is going to need some cool things coming at them. Mm-hmm. When they come out of this, I bet you we could take over ships for affordable. Anyway, and that's what happened.
That's cool.
And you came on some.
Quite a few of these ships. You've had me come on as an entertainer and experience, and it's a very niche.
Not an entertainer, the entertainer.
Oh, thank you. Then now you're reading my intro.
No, it's amazing to walk around with you because I know you as such a nice dude and a friend, and people are enamored by your presence, and you aren't just really cool as David, but you're like the ultimate like representative of what everybody believes Osmonds are, right? The brand of Osmond.
Yeah.
And you carry that brand really well. I'm sure the family's very proud of you.
Thanks. I hope so. Yeah. Maybe you'll get the honest answer. I really appreciate the compliment in that. That's very kind.
No, I mean it. I mean, I think you do. You hold it up well. You have a couple of relatives who don't do so well at that. But I mean, no, I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm kidding. But anyway, that's how the charter thing came about.
I'm not going to name names, but wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Yeah.
No, they're all awesome.
They're all, of course.
We were all. The family dynamics and relationships are very interesting. You've dealt with that, obviously, with Locator and everything. Every family has its own unique
Let me tell you
twists.
something. Can I tell you something? Let me be super transparent. We've had some trauma in my family. And there are still some who aren't speaking to each other. I mean, we have drama in our family.
Really?
Some of it, I would say I'm the culprit, the instigator of those problems and, broken pasts and poor choices and those sorts of things. I do. And I think I can look back at this age and look back to, my earlier career as the Locator and think there was a season of hypocrisy when I was rebuilding families while probably unaware to myself, breaking my own in some ways.
Wow.
And, those were heavy realities to come to grips with. But I only share that. One, I'm in a chapter in my life where I love transparency and authenticity. And I'm okay being imperfect, and I'm okay with knowing that there are people who love me and people who don't, and people who used to and don't. And, dealing with that. Because having spent all these years as the Locator, I've seen how families fracture and the work that it takes to rebuild them. And I wouldn't want anybody who's listening to you and I think that their family, because it is fractured or has trauma or drama or suffering or negative energy, that somehow there's something wrong with their family because they're not like other families. It's been my experience that there is no family that doesn't have that inside it. And I'm not hinting at the Osmonds.
No, but I'll be the first to say we've all got stuff, and our family included.
And I have friends in high places, I'll just say that, both in the Hollywood world and even in the LDS world. And I would say, knowing them so closely, that is true for all of them.
Yeah.
Every family is going through it. And dare I say, not to take this off on a weird path, that could be the whole purpose we're here, really. And so I own that, and I'm okay with that. And I hope that people listening, if you're in a situation where you think, people say, oh, my family's dysfunctional. I don't think there's a function. I don't know what functional.
What does that mean?
What does it even mean? Does it mean, I've seen some people who think they're functional, and in my head I'm like, oh, they are in the biggest, deepest hole of denial I've ever seen, or they're shallow communicators because nobody speaks their truth. Nobody shares their feelings. Nobody, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not to get this all weird, but in the process of reuniting 40,000 families, I've developed some vision that I didn't have prior to that I should have turned on myself along the way and had to finally do that.
Yeah.
And say, wow, what does it take for redemption to happen? And what do you need to do? And what level of humility do you have to reach? And what do you have to finally lean into and own without excuses? And that's been the journey. So it's a little nicer to charter cruise ships.
Those are reflective, powerful questions, though, to really ask ourselves as we kind of come to the close of this particular podcast. And thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in. Yeah. This is a really fascinating topic to really think about in our own lives, not just our familial relationships, but just our relationships in general, how we treat people, how we connect with people, the barriers, the boundaries that we set for each other, and whether we separate, whether we, just how we communicate in general. I think it's a fascinating topic for sure. And nowadays, with the advancement of the technology from when you first started as the Locator and that very first connection to where we are now, it seems like we're more connected than ever before, and we're also more disconnected
100%.
Than ever. We don't even look up at each other anymore. We're just right in face-to-face, line to line. What is the world like now for this challenge? Is it easier to just find someone on a whim? Like, is it harder? Is it easier to hide yourself if you want to? Like, where's that industry going as far as connecting people?
Mm-hmm. Well,
if that makes sense.
When we started this journey, the big tool was microfiche, and the tool today is DNA testing. Mm-hmm. And so from a technological standpoint, DNA testing rips all the hiding places out. I mean, if you have secrets, they're coming out. Yeah. So that part of it's made it easier, but we now live in a society where everybody's skeptical. And so the communication to reach people and get a call back, to get a response to an email, those things are multiple times harder.
Yeah.
And because people are so paranoid, they're harder to find online now because people are starting to get smarter about, I'm going to use a fake email address when I sign up for this thing, and I'm going to do this, and I'm not going to respond to that. And so, it's more about the psychological part of the journey now than it is, it's getting people to be courageous enough to lean in. And because I tell people all the time, and I've always said this, but I mean it from my heart, you cannot find peace until you find all the pieces. And that closure is what we're all seeking in life. And when you listen to the people who reach out to me who are terminally ill, trying to make one more thing happen in their life, that's all that matters. They've never asked for us to help them find the gold watch they had as a kid or the cool car they drove. None of that stuff matters in those last 6 months. It's just people.
Oh, that's an awesome message. To wrap up the last thing, you mentioned the foundation. There's a Locator Foundation, it's called. What's the purpose of that, and how can we support you in that?
Oh, gosh. The Locator Foundation exists because I did a keynote for a corporate CEO here in Utah, and he took me to dinner afterwards, and he said, thanks for doing that. I'd like to do something for you. What could I do? And I said, you don't have to do anything. You paid me well. Your crowd was beautiful. I had a great experience. He's like, no, that's not what I asked you. How can we help you? He said, what's your number one problem outside of your personal life? What's your number one problem? I said, my past television shows are trending higher and higher and higher on Hulu and Amazon Prime and soon Netflix. And people watch those shows and they think I'm still out there doing it. And they reach out to have somebody find their family. And they ask for help. And I've got an email box of thousands and thousands of the most heartbreaking letters from families who think the Locator's sitting there in an office with a team still doing it, and I'm not. He said, you need a nonprofit organization that still can carry on the work. I said, oh, that'd be great. I don't know anything about that. So he said, I'm going to educate you, and we're going to gift you with a nonprofit. So his lawyers and CPAs built a nonprofit, the Locator Foundation, and the website, thelocator.org, O-R-G. And poof, we were off and running. I circled up a bunch of the researchers and DNA experts from the past and said, hey, guys, let's keep granting wishes, even if people can't pay us, can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what started us. But the fundraising's hard as heck.
Yeah.
Hard as heck. So, I mean, I would be like any other nonprofit. I would say if there's a family out there that loves the work we do, we would love we'd love an angel that walked in and said, I can grant as many wishes as you want. Otherwise, go on our cruises because we contribute funds from that to the foundation.
It all goes back full circle. That's cool.
Yeah.
Man, Troy, you're a fascinating guy. You and your wife, Jennifer, you've been married how many years?
37.
Congratulations.
Oh,
and
thank you.
Your beautiful family. And,
Thank you.
And I can tell since the day I met you how people, you value them. Relationships matter just because, intrinsic value. And I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate all you're doing to be the game changer in the world and helping people find that peace through finding the pieces. Like you said, that is really, really
Thank
beautiful.
you, brother. Law of attraction. That's why you and I are friends, because I think we value the same things.
Thanks. I believe that. And to all our audience listening, we value you too. Thank you. We're all connected in,
Come hang out with
in
David
this great
and I.
big world. Thank you for being on Fresh Off the Set. It's great to hang with you, Troy.
Take care, friend.